All right, this is part 2 of our special report here on TalkNetwork.com, How to Survive a Mass Shooting. This is Mike Adams. I'm the co-founder of TalkNetwork.com, and I'm well-trained in tactical handgun combat. Now, in part 1, we talked about a couple of things. Number 1, being able to flee as a possibility. And number 2, being able to potentially fight back or shoot back if you are able to have a firearm. And we also talked about why gunmen tend to be so successful is because they choose areas to carry out their shootings where they know the citizens are disarmed and police have a long response time. This allows them time to reload and continue to execute people, which is their goal. During this time, during a reload, that's a perfect time, of course, to pull out your own Glock and start firing back. Nevertheless, you may not have a firearm, so there are other things you can do, and that's what I'm going to talk about here in part 2. We need to talk about the concept of cover and also the concept of concealment. Now, I'll start with concealment. Concealment means to be physically hidden from the line of sight of the gunman. So if a gunman can't see you, he's very, very unlikely to be able to shoot you. Concealment objects can include things like curtains or doors, walls, things that block line of sight. Concealment can even include, by the way, other people's bodies. Even though a body may or may not stop around from hitting you, it could be cover, but it may only be concealment, depending on what kind of rifle the shooter is carrying. Concealment can also simply include areas of darkness. There might be a dark corner. There might be a dark area underneath a table, underneath a desk, underneath a stage. The shooters in the Paris attacks were on a balcony, and they were able to shoot down at the crowd from an elevated position. This is really a worst case scenario for the victims below. The last thing you want to do is be caught in the open with gunmen in an elevated position above you on a balcony. The correct move in that situation, by the way, is to run, believe it or not, toward them, run underneath them to get underneath the balcony. They are very unlikely to try to shoot underneath the area where they're standing. They have a much clearer and much easier shot to shoot at less of an angle, where they can shoot people that are on the floor, on the stage, and so on in the auditorium. So run under the balcony if that's an option. You might also find a way to hide underneath a chair, a seat. If it's a stadium, if it's an auditorium, there are probably places to hide. You could even hide behind curtains. Again, that's concealment only. That's not considered cover, which I'll cover in a minute. But concealment, think about also the idea that concealment might mean playing dead. It might mean not moving at all. It is possible that, or likely even, that gunmen will target people who are moving. And that if some shooting has already been taking place, they may assume that people that are lying motionless on the floor are people that they've already shot. So playing possum is a legitimate strategy in this kind of scenario. It may save your life. It may not. You may still get struck by a random bullet. If the gunmen are spraying the area with, let's say, fully automatic weapons, for example, then playing possum still carries quite a bit of high risk. Nevertheless, this is for you to determine. I just want you to have this option. If you are unlucky and unlikely enough to be caught in a mass shooting scenario, you need to know your options. You need to be able to think about different things that you could do. By the way, I still want to emphasize the fact that statistically you're very, very unlikely to ever be caught in a mass shooting scenario. You're far more likely to be struck by lightning. Nevertheless, it happens to a few people, and some people are worried about it, so that's why we have these discussions. So moving on from concealment, let's talk about cover. Most people who are not familiar with firearms have very distorted views of what is cover. And this is because they get their information about guns from television or movies. And those of us who actually train with firearms, we laugh at the movies. We laugh at everything because the gun physics that are described and shown or depicted in movies are ridiculous. They make no sense, and they don't reflect the real world at all. For example, in a movie, you see somebody get shot with a .45 handgun, and the person flies off their feet 20 feet across the room, smashes through a window, and falls 9 stories and crashes on a car on the street below. That will never happen from being shot by a .45. The physics just aren't there. They simply don't exist like that. The other thing that you see in movies that you need to know is in movies, couches stop bullets. In the movies, little wooden chairs stop bullets, or tables, or even sheetrock walls in the movies. They can stop bullets. In reality, those things don't stop bullets at all. Even a handgun round will shoot right through sheetrock. It'll shoot through a couch. It'll shoot through even a mattress. It'll shoot through most things. It'll even shoot through the doors of refrigerators. Sometimes you see in movies, the bad guys will throw a refrigerator on the ground and hide behind it, and the bullets will rip across that refrigerator. In reality, most of those bullets are going to go right through that refrigerator. Same thing is true with cars. You always see in movies, you see the good guys hiding behind car doors, and the bad guys are shooting at them, and the bullets keep hitting the car door. But the good guy is okay because he's protected by the car door, right? Well, wrong. In reality, car doors provide no ballistic protection. Even handgun bullets go right through car doors, and rifle rounds go through cars that go through one side and out the other. The only thing that's going to stop a rifle round in terms of a car is like the engine block, perhaps. Or perhaps the wheel rims. There's a slight possibility that those could provide cover. So if you're actually trying to hide behind a car, you have to put the engine block between you and the shooter. You know, the LA cops figured this out a few years ago during the LA shooting, you know, the armed gunman with the bulletproof vest running around shooting up the place. A lot of cops got shot, and they unfortunately learned a very difficult lesson about cover, that vehicles are not cover. They are concealment. You can hide visually behind a car or car door, but a car can be shot through by a rifle very, very easily. So bring this back to the theater scenario. If you are in a theater and there's a mass shooting that gets initiated there, if you think about what's in a theater, almost nothing in that theater provides cover. Lots of things provide concealment. You have the curtains, you have the chairs that the audience is sitting in. You have maybe parts of the stage might provide cover, or obviously to get off the stage to the side of the stage, that would be concealment. I mean, I accidentally said cover right there. I meant concealment. But there's almost nothing that provides cover. In other words, there's nothing that's bulletproof. Things that provide cover are, for example, brick walls or cinder block walls or stone walls or thick pieces of steel. If you wear, obviously, a ballistic vest, like a Class 3A ballistic vest, that can stop potentially a rifle round, but most likely it's designed to stop handgun rounds. Rifle rounds, you're going to need a thicker steel plate on top of your ballistic vest. So don't trust your ballistic vest to stop a rifle round. Anyway, I don't think most people go to the theater wearing a bulletproof vest, so that's not a likely scenario. Let's talk about the gruesome subject of other people's bodies providing cover. This is, again, if you're about to be executed, if you're in a mass shooting and you want, other people have already been shot and are dead around you, it really is a legitimate tactic to hide under those other bodies. I know it doesn't sound pretty. I know it's gruesome. I know even the thought of it is horrific, but the truth is that a human body does provide some level of ballistic protection against handgun rounds, not so much rifle rounds, but it's at least something. You see this in the movies. Some of this is potentially real, where they're fighting and someone grabs the bad guy and pulls them around and lets the other bad guy shoot the first bad guy because the good guy was shoving them towards the shooter, let's say. You see that in the movies. That is possible, although you're probably not a ninja, you're probably not a martial arts expert, so I don't suggest trying to physically overpower one bad guy and shove him towards the other bad guy and hope to mimic, Bruce Willis in Die Hard or something. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm really saying is that if a lot of bodies are around you and the shooting is still going on, you could hide underneath or behind the other bodies. Again, a gruesome thought, but it could save your life, and that's why I'm mentioning it. This is what some of the Jewish citizens did to survive some of the Nazi attacks. They played dead, and they let the dead bodies of their other fellow citizens provide the ballistic protection that they needed to survive. Again, not a happy thought, a gruesome thought, but nevertheless a thought that could save your life, and that's the point. We're talking about how to survive a mass shooting. We're not talking about happy dandelions and balloons in the park. So I want to give you real information, and that's real. All right, the last bit of advice I'm going to go with here is do not try to negotiate with terrorists. Don't walk up to them and think you're going to talk them out of it. You're not. Don't go up to them and say, oh, I'm begging for my child's life, or please don't shoot me, or, we love you, we forgive you, whatever. It's not going to work. They're going to shoot you anyway. If they've already crossed that threshold to the point where they have opened fire, believe me, you're not going to be able to negotiate with them. Don't think that this is going to be solved with compassion for the terrorist. You need to do something like, find a fire axe and cut their head open with it or something. I mean, you need to stop them, not negotiate with them. So set aside any delusions of being able to talk your way out of these situations. You have to think tactically. You got a mass murderer, a crazed, perhaps jihadist coming after you. If you can't shoot them, if you can't stab them, if you can't bite them or gouge their eyes out or flee or cover or something, you're definitely not going to be able to talk to them to get them to change their ways. So if this ever happens to you, I want you to survive. That's why I'm sharing this information. You're listening to TalkNetwork.com. This is Mike Adams, the co-founder of the network, and I hope and pray that you never find yourself in a mass shooting. But if you do, I want you to survive it. Take care.